Andrea Finlay will show us why the question, "Where are you from?" is not just simple for her to answer. She'll take us on a journey from Kansas around the world and back.
When you move to a new town, one of the commonly asked questions is, where are you from? Most people can quickly respond with the name of their hometown or where they've lived the longest. But when I'm asked that question, I do not have a quick answer. As you can see, I was born in Topeka, Kansas. When I was in first grade, my dad took a job with USAID, Agency for International Development. USAID's mission is to assist third world countries in improving their economy by creating new jobs and assisting with economic development programs. Our first stop was Tegucigalpa, Honduras in Central America. I began second grade attending elementary school ran by Americans and Hondurans. In a short time, my mom felt we're not receiving an adequate education. So my amazing mother and some of her friends established a new school called Discovery School that still exists today. My favorite places and activities in Honduras were hiking in La Tigra with my family. The top picture is Morgan Key, an island, a private island where we would rent. It was amazing having the whole island to ourselves. The bottom picture is Roatán Island, where my class took a field trip. After 5 years of island paradise, we moved back to the United States. While living in Annandale, Virginia, my dad commuted to the State Department in Washington, D.C. My mom completed her teaching degree. I enjoyed making new friends, spending my dad's money at shopping malls, and being closer to my grandparents who lived in St. Louis, Missouri. My dad loved living near Washington, D.C., as he was always dragging me to this museum or that national monument or this historical site, etc., etc. My favorite memories include stepping back into colonial times at Williamsburg, Virginia, walking the halls of Congress, and drives through Shenandoah National Park. Our next adventure was Moscow, Russia. While attending high school at Anglo-American School, chartered by the American, British, and Canadian embassies, I made lifelong friends from South Africa, Sweden, Norway, and Germany. Through the power of social media, we are able to share our life adventures even though we are scattered all over the world. Next three slides include pictures taken by my friend Crystal Bach-Thiessen, a Bueller native who has taken the most amazing pictures of my favorite places in Moscow. The Kremlin, a fortified complex at the heart of Moscow. The picture on the left is the St. Basil's Cathedral, located in Red Square. My favorite tradition are the Matryoshka dolls. In my opinion, some of the coolest places in Moscow were the metro stations, from the architecture to the detailed artwork to the escalator that never seemed to end. Some of my favorite memories include spending time walking through the stations and riding on the old train cars. The metro is how my friends and I explored Moscow. When family came to visit, touring the metro stations and riding the trains was a must. We could fill the whole day just riding the trains and walking the stations. Of course, with my dad having to ride the metro 2 hours a day to work at the embassy, he does not share the same fond memories of the metro as I do. After completing high school in Moscow, I returned to the U.S. to attend the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg. Shortly after my parents moved from Russia to Zambia, Africa, being in Missouri allowed me to spend more time with my grandparents and family in St. Louis, as a city I adopted as my U.S. home. The house pictured was my African home during most of my college years, spending summers and holidays there with my parents. My mother volunteered for an orphanage whose children were orphaned by AIDS, by the AIDS epidemic. Listening to my mother's stories made me appreciate the opportunities we have here in the U.S. The picture also is Victorian Falls, the most beautiful place I found in Zambia. During one of my stays in Zambia, I joined my family on a safari. I still remember how awesome it was seeing elephants and lions living free. We purchased the most unique handmade pillows and tablecloths for local residents. The hut pictured is our home base during that safari. My first solo trip was to see my best friend who lived in El Salvador. The San Miguel volcano was my favorite sightseeing trip. My family vacation to South Africa included a 13-hour road trip from Johannesburg to Cape Town, with a stop at Robben Island where Nelson Mandela was confined. Warsaw was another solo trip to see my friend, and the Palace of Culture and Science is at the upper left. Celebrating the 2003 New Year's in Amsterdam and traveling the Netherlands countryside by train was amazing. A trip to Prague will never be forgotten, the Prague Castle picture on the upper right. A trip to Sweden with my friends to experience the midsummer celebration when it seems like the sun never sets was my favorite high school adventure. One winter break, instead of freezing in Russia, our family spent a weekend vacationing in Thailand and enjoying the beach and Thai food. I rang in the 2004 New Year in Istanbul, Turkey, where my mom seemed to buy every rug she could find, and we visited the Sultan Ahmed Mosque. My 2002 spring break was spent on the beaches of Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Riding the train to Vienna and spending a day touring the beautiful city with my dad will always be a special memory. My last overseas trip was to visit my dad, who moved to Budapest, Hungary. This was his last post before he retired and moved back to the United States. This adventure was bittersweet for us. It was the first trip we couldn't share with my mother, who passed away 2 years earlier. I'm thankful I had the opportunity to make so many memories in a short time with her. My dad and I spent 2 weeks enjoying all Budapest has to offer. The Hungarian parliament is breathtaking, and the Hungarian baths are amazing during the winter. I visited the market picture to the right every day. Budapest will always be our adventure. While living in Kansas City, I met my husband, Tony. Of all the places in all the world, he moved me to Hutchinson, Kansas. And I love it. We have made a home with our sons, Brayton and Devin, my princess, Annabelle, and my dad, who moved to Hutchinson this spring. Now when I'm asked, where are you from, I'm thrilled to say I'm from Hutch.